Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky back with my plans and pans. Well, it's been a very interesting couple of weeks now. The election turned out in a way that I think many of you may feel more positive than negative about, which you should. So I wanted to just fill you in as much as I could right now. A number of races still have not been called. But one thing is certain. Actually, two things are certain, and that is that the Senate of the United States will remain in Democratic hands. There is still an election to be had in Georgia on who will be in the Senate. So there are still a lot of questions. But on the House side, we know that now that the Republicans will have the majority. It appears to be a very slim majority. We don't know by how many votes the Republicans will be in charge, but that does mean that they have the opportunity to choose the Speaker of the House, to have the chairman of all of the committees. They will still have to get 218 votes in order to pass a bill, have to get 218 votes for who is going to be the next Speaker of the House. Now, the Republicans did have their leadership elections, and Kevin McCarthy got the most votes, but yet there were 33 Republicans who did not vote for him. So if he is entitled to be the Speaker of the House, he would have to come to the floor and get 218 votes. So we'll see. So that is still not determined and won't be until January 3rd, when the House convenes in the 118th Congress. But we also know what we have to do by the end of the session. And Democrats are still in charge of both the House and the Senate. What the most important thing, the top line issue that we have to do, is to pass the 2023 fiscal year appropriations bill. Has to pass. And there are still a number of questions that are going to have to be resolved by December 16th. That is the deadline for coming up with the appropriations for next year. And that means we're going to have to come to an agreement on some very, very serious issues. And there are a number of things that we want to make sure that we're able to actually get into that end of the year budget. One would be, we want to see if we can get something passed for DACA recipients. These are the children of undocumented people who came to this country and we've been fighting for that. Senator Durbin has had it for over 20 years to make sure that there are privileges for those children. Now, many of them are pretty much grown up, contributing to the United States of America, to make sure that DACA recipients, these young undocumented people, have all the opportunities to work, to go to school, and to have a pathway to citizenship. A couple of the other things that we'd like to see in the appropriations package at the end of the day is the Election Count Act. This is legislation that would prevent any future president from trying to steal an election with a false count. We will be considering probably some more money for Ukraine and for disaster relief that is much needed. So there are a number of items still that are under discussion to get in there. In addition, we need to pass the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. That will be under consideration before the end of the year. And one of the things that we also might want to, that Democrats would like to see, is to raise the debt ceiling. Here's what I want you to understand. When we say raise the debt ceiling, These are dollars that have already been spent. It is not about new appropriations. It's will we pay the debt that we have as the United States of America and maintain the full faith and credit of the United States of America. We would like to do it before the end of this session because we don't want any games being played to try and leverage certain things that could come up, and just do it right now. We're one of the only countries, I think maybe the only country in the advanced countries that has a yearly vote to say we will pay our bills. We should just make that permanent, not have to vote on it every single year. So we're going to try and get that done. So, we're still in the majority as Democrats, and I am hoping that we're going to be able to get a good deal of this done. A very important bill that passed the Senate is the Defense of Marriage Act. That says that same-sex marriage would be legal. We had in the Senate 62 votes, which means a number of Republicans as well as Democrats voted to support that. You should know that 71% of Americans support that. It is a real advance, I think, for all of us, but of course particularly for the LGBTQ plus population, and that's very exciting. So it passed the Senate. It does need to come back to the House, even though we've already voted for it once, to make sure that that legislation can be signed by Joe Biden, which he will, into the law of the land. I wanted to tell you about bills that I have gotten passed just in the last few days. I mentioned some of them before that they're actually going to happen. The Lymphedema Treatment Act, which is going to help literally millions of people who have not been able to afford the compression garments that they need because Medicare doesn't cover the cost of that, even though there is no cure, but it does have a treatment. And those are those compression garments. Many of you have seen women who have had breast cancer with the swelling that they've had. So this is an important bill. Bipartisan, totally, all the way, and happy that that is done. The Informed Consumer Act will require that all these online marketplaces will have to be verified that they are legitimate and that we won't have the dangerous counterfeit and stolen items for sale that hurt not only consumers, but certainly many, many businesses big and small. We're very encouraged that it also will be in that end of the year package. The last one, I think I talked to you about it, the PAST Act, the bill that prevents the horrific, inhumane practice of horse soaring, of making painful additions to the hoofs of horses so that they have to lift their feet higher. That's the only reason that is done, that horse soaring, so they'll look better at horse shows. So that passed now in the House, and we are hopeful that it's going to be at the end of the year package. So those are some of the important changes that we want to see before we go into the 118th Congress. Of course, my report on COVID, and it's not a great one. COVID-19 transmissions have gone up. They are going up, and we are now at medium risk level across the Chicago area. It is attributable to the fact that more of us are inside. And if you are compromised in any way, you want to make sure that you take the precautions like wearing a mask. Think about it for the holidays, and anyone that is has not taken advantage of the boosters. Make sure that you encourage them to do so if you haven't. As you know, And I've said so many times that everyone from age 5 and older is eligible to get the vaccination for the Omicron variant, which is the one that we're most worried about. On Wednesday, Illinois reported 2,186 new COVID cases and 14 deaths. So we're in a slightly new and more dangerous phase. So if you have any kind of immune deficiencies or any kind of compromise, just make sure that you take care of yourself, and wearing a mask may be the best thing that you could do. Well, I just came up from the floor of the House where Nancy Pelosi made a really, really important announcement. She talked about her years in the House of Representatives, her years as the Speaker of the House, her first trip to Washington when she was 6 years old, and saw her father being sworn in the House of Representatives. And then she announced that she would not be seeking leadership again. In other words, she would not be running for the leader in the House of Representatives or any other leadership position, but that she was going to stay and represent San Francisco. I hope she stays for a while. I'm a little choked up, even as I describe it. Nancy Pelosi has been a very dear and precious and close friend of mine for many years. I had the opportunity to nominate her when she first ran for Speaker in 2006. She's been more than just a friend, though, really a mentor, a role model. And in some ways, this represents a kind of end of an era when Nancy Pelosi will no longer be the Speaker, and it'll be passed on to a younger generation. We will have leadership elections that are coming up. We'll have a new leader, not a speaker, because we won't be in the majority, and a number of I think new people who will be helping to lead the Democrats. Anyway, it was a very special moment. Lots of cheering and lots of hugs and lots of appreciation for the leadership of Nancy Pelosi. I just wanted to tell you about that, a very moving moment for me. So thank you. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, if I don't see you before that, and enjoy yourselves, enjoy the holiday, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.